Hey everyone, and welcome to the Collective VC podcast. Today we're joined by Max Pog. He is an expert on venture studios. He is the founder of the Venture Studio family, and he's also published research about venture studios. I'm really interested in hearing more about your journey, and also just you can share your insights with the community about what it's like to share information about venture studios, because I feel like it's quite a niche thing within the sort of venture capital and startup landscape, and it's not something that too many people talk about.
Thank you, Ollie, for inviting me. So I wanted to find the way on how to launch companies in parallel and how to realize all the ideas I have as an entrepreneur. And then I met a venture studio model. And first I decided to launch a venture studio. And then when I started to dive deep, I understood that there are many approaches and ways. And I published a big research paper on studios. It attracted a lot of attention. So I've suddenly, unexpectedly for me, became a small influencer in this niche. This is why I continue to do different projects with on venture studios. For example, we've created community. We hosted several online conferences for venture studios, VCs, and family offices. And I record podcast interviews with studio founders. So I create content, but I'm still feeling this imposter syndrome that, oh wow, probably I have to create a studio to actually be able to feel confidence when talking about venture studios. But I met many studio founders. I talked to many operators in studios, and I have some opinion, or I have some thoughts and knowledge, and very happy to share everything I know.
So I'm curious, what's a defining trait that you feel is familiar between all of these different venture studio enthusiasts and operators that you speak to?
So studios are organizations which launch companies in parallel, simultaneously, usually 3 to 5 companies on average. Sometimes it's one company, sometimes 10 or more. They all have full-time teams of professionals who dedicate their time to partner with entrepreneurs and launch new companies. Sometimes studios, they launch companies from scratch without entrepreneurs, and only then they attract co-founders and CEOs. Some studios start from scratch together with entrepreneurs. So the difference, if you will ask me what is the difference between accelerators and studios, is that studios dedicate full-time team, and usually they have a fund which also backs companies on pre-seed, sometimes seed or Series A. So this is what is the red thread between all the studios, launching companies with in partnership with entrepreneurs, and supporting them in different ways to make them independent companies. So it's like an institutional co-founder, a term coined by El Perselian.
And so when you're talking to all of these people who are, building these venture studios, are they similar to you? Like you said, you wanted to build lots of companies in parallel. You're a big ideator. You have lots of ideas. Is that a common trait between all of them?
Okay, let me try to answer like what is the studio founders or what are the founders of successful studios. So usually those are exit founders or serial entrepreneurs who already built at least 1 to 3 companies. And they consider maybe I can now start investing or launch my fund to back other entrepreneurs, or I can continue building companies and I can consider a different model, which is working together with entrepreneurs, much more involved. And I know some of them started investing, but then understood that I want to be involved in company creations, and they switched to this venture studio model. Some of them just have so many ideas that they start doing companies in parallel, and suddenly they realize, oh wow, this is called a startup studio or a venture builder or a venture studio. And some of them start without big successes before as entrepreneurs, and it might be challenging and difficult if you don't have money to start and if you don't have something, some experience which will be so attractive for other entrepreneurs to join your studio.
Interesting. So when was it that you realized there was a need to publish some research in this space? And what were your key goals when you set out to publishing that research?
So originally, I wanted to find some partners to launch a studio together with me. When I published an announcement post on LinkedIn, so it was just like a screenshot, like 1% of what is in my paper, and also describing what I've done. I saw huge interest. So this post went viral and got 2,000 comments from people who wanted to read it. At this moment, I realized, oh wow, maybe I don't have just to find a partner to launch a studio, but maybe I'll go deeply, because I saw that some of the people who were interested in this paper were founders of successful studios that I read earlier before. This is why I took a lot of time, so maybe 1.5 months additionally to previous 6 months of my research to gather all the best information or all the details what I thought were missed in my paper. And finally, in the process of this preparation for final publication, I understood that I want to create projects which will allow me to go deep into the venture studio model and potentially become number one in understanding how to launch studios, how to operate them. This is why I started to record podcast interviews with founders of venture studios. This is why we later organized several conferences, attracted some speakers. We launched a community of studios, and inside our closed community called Venture Studio Family, we have some atmosphere where we try to encourage studios to share their problems, their numbers, benchmarks, and this allows me to understand better how different models operate. I also was invited to co-lead an investment syndicate, which is dedicated to invest in startup studios, and it also gives additional perspective and deep knowledge about studios. So my goals were to become an expert and then monetize this expertise through either investing in studios or launching studios, and so having equity in venture studios. And I'm still in this process of understanding what is the best way to do it.
And at least for me, it seems like when you were publishing that research, that's really what kicked off a lot of your traction on social media, and at least getting some of these huge event numbers as well. So I guess what were some of the learnings of posting that research and turning it into an accessible content that really made people engaged and interested in venture studios as much as you are?
So I didn't plan it intentionally to get so much traction. I had some people that were waiting, with whom I talked, some entrepreneurs or some VCs that were expecting, that knew that I learned a lot about studios, and I wanted just to get some additional, maybe 10-20 people who will be my readers when I publish it. It was suddenly viral, and I remember this feeling. Oh wow! Every minute, or almost every 20 seconds, I see new comment under the post, and it gets more and more traction, and people are, oh wow, so interesting to learn about studios. So I couldn't say that it was intentional, that I understood how to do it. Then I just so when I published, I felt that okay, I don't know some paper which is so in detailed about different aspects of venture studios. So, and I think that just like put in a lot of time. So I counted that it was like about 1,000 hours of my time to prepare this paper and make it free for everyone. So this created such big interest because it was really a lot of data, and I refer to more than 100 different sources and links in my paper. And this is why people were so grateful that they were ready to share it and later ready to visit our conferences and speak at our conferences.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I guess for those who haven't read it, could you maybe summarize?
Studios have many problems and many advantages. So it's not silver bullet that you can take and it will solve all the problems of entrepreneurship. So the problems include difficulties to attract experienced founders. So many studios try to attract as experienced founders as possible. And for many founders, it's a red flag that a studio can take 30, 40, 50% equity. Even like 25% equity. For some entrepreneurs, it might be not interesting to join. So, and there is a adverse selection of entrepreneurs. So it's one of the problem. Another problem might be that if studios take more equity than, let's say, 20 or 25%, VC funds investing in Series A companies, Series B, might be also not interested in investing because they're afraid that entrepreneurs will lose their motivation. There is a passive investor with a big part of equity in the company, and so startups created in studios can face difficulties while fundraising because some VCs can see that okay, there is a passive studio after a certain period of time. It's not interesting for us to invest. Then all the data which is now available on studios has some flaws in the methodologies, how it was derived. So there are some very great numbers in terms of investment performance of startups created in studios. At the same time, it's very difficult to create research data which will be unbiased. We try with my team and with some contributors from our community. We try to do our best to do it. This year we'll publish our results, but it's still you cannot claim that studios are very successful and they create startups that are more viable than other startups. Even if there are some research which shows that startups created in studios show better traction and better. And also my part of research was comparing those numbers. And still I think that that there might be more better ways to do the research, more academic approach or scientific approach, which will avoid all potential biases, survivorship biases and other. Then not all studios survive, and this is also a problem. So if you look at even studios that created successful startups, for example, there is a base called Venture Studio Index database, where there are about 400 venture studios and 1,800 startups. So you can still find that at least half of the studios, or maybe 2/3 of studios, they are not very active as studios. And also, when I published the paper, so I referred to one book called Startup Studio Playbook. The interviews for this book were recorded in like 2016, 2017. And now or in 2023, only like three studios out of 9 interviewed are still active. Other 6 are already shut down or in a passive mode, keeping some equities in the companies they started, but not creating new companies anymore. So, and I see a lot of interest in the model. At the same time, it's very difficult to start a studio, and I believe that there should be very experienced teams with exited founders with very big expertise in a specific field that can be successful studio founders. But there are also many advantages. So it just makes sense that if you launched already 5 companies on 10 companies or 15 companies, your company number 16 will be much more efficient in terms of how you attract customers, how you create products, because you understand your industry or your field or your business model much better than when you launched your first or third company. And there is statistics showing that entrepreneurs with previous entrepreneurial background, for example, they launched 4 or 5 companies, their exit probability is twice as big in comparison with first-time founders or second-time founders. So the more experience you have in something, the better your results will be. And this is what studios make happen when they launch companies. So they accumulated some expertise in their field. They created a brand, and they know hundreds of pain points of their customers on their market, and this makes launching companies more effective. And it's the same if there is still no very transparent data. Still, the current data which is available, even with some problems, shows that the investment performance is better in terms of IRRs, TVPIs, and that companies get funding faster, partially because of studio funds, and also because they can just reach revenue faster, because they can reuse their customer base, understanding of the industry, and also experience of founders and the team of the studio. So, and what are also benefits? For example, if you have a team of professionals of your studio, you can leverage, let's say, a lawyer or a developer or a DevOps or a designer, marketing specialist, or some business development people in your team across several startups, let's say 3 startups, and it will be more efficient in comparison that if you partner with external agency or if you just hire part-time or full-time people. So actually it becomes cheaper for you if you have a team and you can use it. So it's like your digital agency at cost. And also, especially if you reach a specific expertise somewhere in an industry or in a vertical, you can be more effective than independent companies. One of the examples I always use is a company called OSS Ventures, a studio launched by an exited founder with purpose to build B2B SaaS for manufacturing. And their team set relationships with more than 800 factories. So they visited 860 plus different factories, collected different problems of these factories, and also build some infrastructure on how to create software for manufacturing better. and they launched already more than 15 startups. 8 got Series A funding in 4-5 years since inception, and they attract usually very experienced founders. So like 60% of their founders had previous exits, and they reach revenue just in 4-5 months, and hit $500,000 annual recurring revenue in 9 or 12 months for their companies, because they understand the industry better. Their customers know the studio and are more likely to partner with new companies launched by the studio. So, and at certain stage, a studio can reach such level of expertise that no one entrepreneur and no one VC firm can reach in a specific industry, because this team of a studio can really understand what happens in their field and what are the problems, and also can reuse some of the common resources between the studio and startups in the portfolio. So yeah, these are some. So to summarize my paper, actually it's like 2 parts of my of 17 parts of my paper, which are like, there are a lot of difficulties and there are a lot of benefits in the venture studio model.
And I encourage everyone to, I'm going to link it in the description. So if people want to go read that research, definitely please do if you're interested in venture studios. I have a question. I recently went to a talk and it was by a man called Nigel Toon, and he sold his company to NVIDIA a while ago. And he said that something that's very important in entrepreneurship is recognizing when to quit something. And he called it killing the puppy, right? So you love it and you just have to get rid of it and let it go. So what does that look like in venture studios where you're launching, like you said, sometimes upwards of 10, 15 companies? What's the role of favoritism, and how do you know sometimes when something just isn't going to work out, and how do you let that person go? Or is that even how it works? Do you let them go, or do you just say, come to a mutual agreement that it's time to stop?
Different studios do different approaches, but yeah, there is also, we can call it a benefit that studios can pivot cold-bloodedly because they have a so-called stage gate model when they invest capital in after a startup or an idea reaches certain milestones. For example, they interviewed 50 customers. Okay, if they believe that after this interviews there is a big need in what they plan to build, so they, for example, invest, let's say, $50,000 to build first version of the product, and with the target to get maybe first 1, 2, 3 paid customers. If it happens, they invest another, let's say, $200K to develop the product and to bring more customers, and then to fundraise external round. So this is an example, a short example, that there might be some stages, and if the startup doesn't reach a certain point, some studios do it. They just pivot in ideas and they just stop, continue this idea, and they go back 1 or 2 stages back to try another approach or problem. And of course, in theory, it sounds great, but not all studios are very strict with this approach. So some try to be in such hard mode that, okay, you didn't perform, you didn't reach certain stages. This is why, or certain goals. This is why we stop developing this idea. And some studios, they make decisions every moment in time. So yes, of course, we plan this doesn't work, but does it make sense to continue or not? And studios still can be such a cold blood head, which helps entrepreneurs to pivot. What they do with entrepreneurs? So do they just stop partnership, or they attract entrepreneurs to join their new idea or their new venture? I think it depends on the model. If a studio knows that this entrepreneur is great and the partnership during the first 3 months or half a year or 1 year was successful, so that entrepreneurs really delivered what was expected, but maybe the idea just doesn't work and there is no market need or some other problems with this idea, I think they would be happy to invite this entrepreneur and say, let's continue with another idea until you will become until you'll find the successful idea. But some may just say, okay, we are not able to deliver. If they're not sure that this is one of the best entrepreneurs they worked with, I think they will just say, okay, our trial period is finished. We felt we met some difficulties, and we don't think that it was pursuing this idea. This is why we stop our partnership.
That makes sense. Earlier, you spoke about some of the obstacles that come between somebody and then wanting to start a venture studio. So yeah, I'm interested, how does the process of establishing a venture studio differ from the process of establishing, say, a VC fund?
So for a venture studio to start, I think there should be several ingredients. Actually, we can say that the same is in a venture capital fund. So two first ingredients which come are investors and founders. So you have to get some capital, and some studio founders, they start with their own capital, and later they can raise the fund, or they can attract funding into their holding company of studio. So, and you have to create a deal flow, or in terms of studios founder funnel or a team flow. So when starting a studio, I think that it's necessary to understand what is your focus, and can you reach number one expertise in this focus or not, because this can help you to bring better talent of entrepreneurs if you will reach such level of experience and expertise in a specific vertical, which is hard to get. And to do this, you have to gather the right team of advisors, expert founders, and partnerships, where it will be much easier for you to launch companies in this sector. For attracting founders, you have to create some either programs where founders can join for a specific period of time,
kind of like cohorts, right?
Yeah, maybe cohorts, but or you can create just a list of your ideas, and you can be looking for founders in an evergreen model. So whatever you see the great founder, you are attracting them to try work with you together to create new companies. So the difference between launching those two different models, I think, is that for the studio, you need more operators, product managers, developers that will actually build the product, sell the product together with entrepreneurs. For the VC firm, you will need to have many partnerships with like how you can get very wide, or like how can you create a lot of deal flow startups in your deal flow. how can you partner with some incubators, accelerators, other VC firms to share the deal flow. And maybe also, like during launching fund, you have to fundraise from limited partners. For the studio, I think it's more important to find your specific field where you can become number one, at least in 3 years, and this will help you to attract better experienced entrepreneurs to partner with you. And for this, you can have a team. You have to have capital to invest, and you have to be able to launch companies more efficiently than in wild.
I like that phrase, "in the wild." I'm thinking when a VC firm makes an investment in a company, especially if they have a very dispersed fund model and they don't really, they're half expecting it to go to zero, right? So I'm thinking when it comes to venture studios, is there an element of a much more intensive due diligence process, right? Because you're going to have a much longer relationship with this person or the team, a much more intimate relationship. So what are some of the aspects that really strengthen the diligence of a venture studio as compared to just angel investing or venture capital investing?
So because most studios distinguish themselves from other investment firms with the approach that they actually start companies. So they're not just invest in existing companies, even if it is sometimes the case. This is why they actually evaluate entrepreneurs. So they're not evaluating some external ideas with entrepreneurs. What matters is whether this person is very motivated, whether they have certain skills that will help them to launch companies and become the CEOs or CTOs more effectively than other people. For example, some studios, they prefer entrepreneurs even with previous failing experience than first-time founders. And also some studios don't like to work with some people who were in corporates for many years, because it's quite difficult to create something new, but not manage. So maybe you are a good manager, but it's a different game when you're creating a company from 0 to 1. This is why studios are looking for specific types of entrepreneurs. Ideally, some studios are specialized in working either with exited founders or with top CEOs with let's say 20-30 years of experience. So when you understand that, okay, this person has the best relationships with everyone on the market, and if the studio has quite big capital to invest in startups, so they can be willing to find some very experienced CEO which can manage at least several $1 million to launch a company. Others are looking for hustlers or entrepreneurs that are trying to find water in the desert, or trying to find some unconventional ways to build company and to find the big problem which is overlooked by other players. So there are different approaches, and I think that the main valuation or due diligence is whether this person meets certain criteria which studio has for their co-founders.
So a question bouncing off that question is, what are the sort of power dynamics at play, right? Because when you're assessing a co-founder who's a person, you are, you're looking for complementary skill sets and you're looking for someone you can get along with. But I wouldn't even know where to begin looking at, how to assess an institutional co-founder. It's kind of a strange thing to think about. So maybe you can share some thoughts about how entrepreneurs can best maybe choose different studios or think about how to assess the power dynamics there.
Yeah, so first of all, there are some bases. So I know two good available bases of studios. One is Enhanced Ventures Startup Studio Map, and another is Diana Lizage. She created her database of studios. And also we are doing so because we are doing our research. We also have now it's closed base of venture studios, but maybe we'll create some type of a marketplace for founders where they can filter different studios with certain parameters. I think while evaluating a studio, first you are looking. So first you define like whether you need to get salary from scratch or not. So because some studios can provide it and can pay you for your involvement, and some say okay, have the skin in the game with us together. This is why we don't pay at least for the first several months or 1-2 years or something. So some studios even can say that okay, invest with us together if you want to start a company with us. But most studios, they provide capital, and they have some type of either stipend or some remuneration for entrepreneurs. And then when actually they incorporate a company, entrepreneurs can also get some salary, which might be less than market salary, but still it can be supportive. So I wanted to tell that you have to understand whether you are ready to invest your own money, or you're looking for salary and maybe less equity in a startup, or you're looking for the best possible studio and you are ready to work without salary for some time, and so on. So then you are looking at studios that work on such terms, whether they have big successes from their portfolio companies, or the founders had previous big successes, which is much easier. Also, you can understand what is their model. So how much equity do they take? Do their companies raise external capital from notable VCs? So let me think. So yeah, you're comparing what is the track record of entrepreneurs and studios, and what are their terms. So actually, how much money they invest during what period of time, and you can talk to their co-founders of the studio and actually understand whether the studio is very supportive or not, because some studios can take a lot of equity and can be not so supportive as they claim on their website. This is why you can also check from their previous successes and talking to their previous co-founders.
So what does it look like when an entrepreneur takes their company and they leave the studio, maybe when the time is right, or they're going to raise further funding? Is it like a baby bird leaving the nest, or is there support that's after that stage? Because I imagine if you're running cohorts, there's new companies coming in and they need to kind of get the old ones going, but that might not be the case. So maybe you can talk a little bit on that.
So let me understand. Is your question what happens after the startup leaves the studio, or what happens when an entrepreneur joins the studio?
Kind of. So imagine that if they've built 15 companies, they didn't do that at the same time, right? So some are leaving and some are coming in. So
okay, yeah. Usually studios are involved for a certain period of time, at least 6 months on average, maybe 1 to 1.5 years, sometimes 2 years, and this threshold is usually either raising seed or Series A capital, or reaching certain point, or maybe they will develop in a company until they're ready to delegate the management to a CEO or a co-founder they're attracting. So you just have to understand that usually there is a certain period of time, let's say one year, or 1.5 years when you work together with the studio. So they're building the product, they're doing customer research, they're investing some capital to let you hire the team. They're helping in hiring the team, and they are helping in introducing you to your customers and partners. So you can use the team of 10 to 20 professionals when you need, as it is your own team, actually. Then when you, let's say you raise seed capital, and you have already hired your team, startup team, so you are becoming independent. Of course, the studio can help you later, and some studios, they show some examples when after, let's say, 2-3 years of startup operations, or maybe after 1-2 years after they leave a studio, the startup faces some challenges, and they are like special forces which are coming again and helping to find the way how to solve those difficulties for again maybe several months or 1 year. So I met such examples, but usually a startup becomes independent. It has their own team, and they can actually, I think the relationships between a studio and a startup at this point becomes like from a venture capital fund and its portfolio companies usually. So they're ready to help, they're ready to make intros, but usually they don't work full time and to help you grow. So this is why you have to understand that a studio is a temporary partner for up to 2 years, and then they will help you to launch, and they might be the number one co-founder, which is in most cases better than just a one person you can find, but in 2 years you'll have your own team and you'll have to continue on your own. Sometimes studios, they attract one co-founder, let's say CEO, and sometimes they attract 2 co-founders or 3 co-founders. This also can be like different models. You have to understand what equity will each of the partners have, and what will be the model of a studio. So how much capital do they invest? What is the equity? And you might face completely different approaches. So some studios might even take like 70 or 80% equity, and you are almost like a employee there with a big employee stock option. Yeah. Sometimes studios can take only 15% of equity, and you are as a founder. So with a typical accelerator or venture early stage VC.
I'm conscious we're coming up on time, so I have a penultimate question, which is how can venture studio teams prevent context switching too much, especially if they're building companies in parallel? Can it get confusing sometimes if they're working on different things, and how do they make sure they sort of allocate time equally between different founders?
Studios can first of all have specific guidelines on like, okay, what is the process of launching a startup? Some studios have like 72 steps. you know, there is a book, Discipline Entrepreneurship, with 24 steps of launching a company. And some studios, they divide those steps into additional steps, and they can have very strict process. Okay, we have our map of what is the process of launching a startup. And it's very so they have guidelines on how they help startups on each stage, what must be done there, and this helps to allocate resources equally. Other studios, I think they're not so strict, in terms of processes, and some studios even say that you don't have to have a system for creating startups, so that each time you must make decisions on what makes sense now. And in their cases, I think that some of them can allocate resources equally, or to focus on the most performant companies, or to focus on those who are underperforming. In some cases, some studios, they get such a successful company, which makes them shut down the studio and focus completely on one company to grow. In other cases, some entrepreneurs, for example, Jack Abraham, CEO and the founder of Atomic Venture Studio, so he says that we try not to we try to let our entrepreneurs to get all the benefits, credit for the success of companies, and so you have to have a specific discipline in supporting companies and launching new companies, and letting companies become independent if you are a true venture studio.
I lied a little bit. I have a couple more questions, but just because something sprung to mind. Of all of the venture studios you've spoken to and worked with, which of them have the nicest sort of interior design or physical premises if they have an actual location?
Because I work remotely from Portugal, so I didn't visit some studios in person. This is why for me it's difficult to to say that this studio has a real great physical.
Okay, fine. So if you had to build your own dream studio, how would you do it, and what would it look like?
Now I'm thinking about an approach of going into verticals, then finding a niche, gathering the right co-founding team with exited founders, some experts in this field, investors, and launching a studio with the right co-founding team, which has potential to become number one in this niche or vertical. So I think that now this is one of the main principles for me if I would launch a studio. So to focus and create the best possible team for the studio. In terms of whether it's physical or not, I think there are some benefits to be in person, and there are some benefits to work remotely. So where you can find different experts, which may be located in different regions, but you might gather the right founding team first, and second, you might also use some geographical arbitrage to save costs on your remote team members, maybe even in different countries.
That's smart. Yeah, we are coming up to time now. So for a final question, if you could ask one question to our next guest, whoever they may be, but assuming they're probably either an investor or an entrepreneur, what would that question be?
So yeah, there are two strategies for launching companies, for creating venture capital funds and venture studios, and also the two approaches to life. So the first is you are focusing on one thing, and you are becoming number one in it. At the same time, you might miss some trends. For example, now there are some like AI is changing everything, and you might miss it because you are not. It's not in scope of your interest or focus. You are doing something niche thing. This is the second approach is follow your curiosity and also trends. So whatever you think is interesting right now, you are focusing on it. So what do you think is the right approach to launch companies? Whether to be an agnostic and follow your curiosity and different opportunities, and opportunistic approach, or striving to become number one in something. Doesn't matter what other people do.
Yeah, on that note, thank you very much, Max, for offering your time. Always incredibly thankful. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing all of your knowledge on venture studios.
Thank you. Great, Ollie. Thank you.